Chris, interestingly, when we were talking about, the silhouette for Oppenheimer and the costuming and the tailoring, he sent me images of David Bowie quite early on in the process, from the kind of thin white Duke era, those huge kind of balloon pants, and Bowie with his very, very, very slight physicality and that silhouette. So that was a kind of an unusual one that I wouldn't have expected, but it kind of worked, and we used that reference. I mean, you could never tell in the movie, but it was useful for me and for Chris and for Ellen, our costume designer.
Thanks for tuning in to the Envelope Actors Roundtable. I'm your host, Michael Ordonia of the Los Angeles Times. Before we get into it, though, I have to say, when I was looking up what projects you guys might share, apart from you two, Jeffrey and Colman, of course, being in Rustin this year, I found that if you Google Mark Ruffalo, Andrew Scott, you get this kind of weird internet opinion that you two look alike.
Huh, I'll take that.
Okay.
Thank you. Great.
Had you guys ever heard that before?
I could see
We can play
that.
brothers.
All right, I see a movie in the works.
This is going well. I'm glad I came.
I feel like I look a little bit like everybody.
No, just me.
But mostly you.
Yeah, mostly.
So I take it that's the first time you've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. It's amazing.
I don't suppose any of you have ever been mistaken for other actors, though, have you?
I've been mistaken for Larry the Cable Guy. You know who Larry the Cable
I
Guy
know.
is? You know who Larry the Cable Guy is?
No.
Oh, he's great. He looks a lot like me. And he's a kind of like redneck comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been mistaken for him for 3 times. I wonder if he's ever been mistaken for me. Yeah. I wonder if that's who I get mistaken.
And then you spoke and they said, oh, no, you're not him.
Yeah, definitely not him. Definitely not him.
But,
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Really?
Vincent D'Onofrio.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see
I was
that.
in a grocery store and someone's like, I know who you are. And I was like, yeah. She's like, that episode of you when you got trapped in the subway and you almost died. I was just like, that wasn't me. Oh, okay, it wasn't you.
That's what you're doing.
I'm like, no, it's Vincent D'Onofrio. And she's like, oh, okay. And she wouldn't believe me. She didn't believe me.
But take the compliment.
I took that. Man, are you kidding?
Yeah.
I should have been like, yeah, thank you. That was pretty good, that episode.
Cillian, Oppenheimer turned out to be a massive, massive success. It's the largest grossing biopic ever. But it's a 3-hour historical epic. I wonder if, when you were making it, you had any idea at all that it would be so embraced by so many people.
No, we didn't have any clue that people would respond the way they did. And it's just the brilliance of Chris, is that he has always presupposed that the audience are super smart, which they are. And he never panders to them or patronizes the audience. So they seem to be ready for it and wanted to, something like that was challenging, I think, and provocative, and asked questions. Didn't really give the answers. I don't think it's the duty of art to give the answers. It's just to ask the questions.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
At the beginning, honestly, I didn't have a clue. It was so terrifying, because he's such an iconic 20th century figure, and the world that we live in now is Oppenheimer's world, because of what happened in '45. We were living in a nuclear age because of that. So it's vast, but then you gotta like kind of not just look at that the whole time because you get overwhelmed. Look at that, you gotta look kind of focusing on the humanity, and that was my gig. Like, was the humanity of it. And a lot of people have said to me, "So, how are you with quantum mechanics?" Man, that is not my job. People dedicate their lives. That's very so I had a vague understanding. It was not like my job. And the other thing was like doing an impression that's not in my wheelhouse. That I can't. It's not one of my skill sets. I can't do that. So it was like the script was the primary resource, and then there is loads of stuff online, huge amounts.
Is there a lot of footage of him?
Yes, but mostly it's him giving lectures, so it's very performative.
Yeah, right.
It's not
him
kind of candid.
Naturally, yeah.
It's, you know, he's consciously giving these lectures, so we get to kind of extrapolate from that and work backwards to trying to find the human being. So it was just I worked so closely with Chris, and you know, for me, acting is an instinctual exercise, not an intellectual one. It never has been for me, and I can do all the research, and I did so much of it, and I had 6 months. I would have taken another 6 months because there's so much material. But then I just kind of parked it, and then it took it onto the floor with those other extraordinary actors, and it was about what happened in the energy between. And that was really what it was like. What is at stake at this point in this scene? And you know, you always know what's at stake in the bigger picture, but what's at stake right now between him and his wife, between him and Straws, between him and Groves, and all these different characters, and that was what I focused on every day. You have to go at it bite by bite with those big ones, because otherwise you just get overwhelmed. It was a little by little, day by day, and then a lot of it came from the outside as well. You know, just trying to find how he walked, how he looked. Again, like not trying to do an impression, but stealing little things. Like he always stood with his hand on his hip in a very jaunty angle in all the.
Wow.
No,
you just did something that, like, I feel like the same with Rustin. He always stood like this, actually.
Yeah,
Because of the times.
Maybe it wasn't because you have your jacket.
It's all, a jacket and a bit like this, exactly.
Yeah.
That was a thing. That is a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing. You know,
I see that nowadays.
You know, it's a thing like this. It's a lot of that.
It's like a period.
You know what? Like Betty Davis used to stand
really
like
funny,
that. Actually,
yeah.
a lot,
It's
because she
some
said it
kind
would
of
give her
period thing.
size.
That's very.
So maybe that was part of it.
That's
It makes you feel like you
interesting.
take up more space in the room.
We now know how to deliver a great performance.
This is it. That's the key.
No one does it nowadays. People don't walk around like that anymore.
No.
They were also a bit more stylish as a collective than we are now, certainly.
Yeah.
You know,
So there was a bit more flair.
Yeah.
that is
I mean, Oppenheimer was, he was solving the nuclear riddle, but he was also super stylish.
He was very self-conscious. He was
Yes.
very self-consciously mythologizing himself as he went along.
The movie does that great.
Which was interesting. You know,
building it. Yeah.
Yes.
the whole thing.
He was aware.
It wasn't by accident.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because that gives you a bit of a license to be a little bit more performative.
But it's like men like, but maybe that's something of the men of that time in a way. I feel like Rustin. the same.
Yeah.
He gave himself such size. He gave himself a mid-Atlantic standard accent.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
He created a vision of himself to move through spaces and use it as a tool.
Yeah.
You know. But also, I think we have that in other ways. I think as human beings, you know, in our style or growing a beard. Or
Each of us are taught in ways both cunning and cruel that we are inadequate, incomplete. And the easiest way to combat that feeling of not being enough is to find someone we consider less than. Less than because they are poorer than us, or because they are darker than us, or because they desire someone our churches and our laws say they should not desire. When we tell ourselves such lies, start to live and believe such lies, we do the work of our oppressors by oppressing ourselves.
But I imagine, too, that for him is a tool and a weapon for survival.
Absolutely.
It's a necessary choice.
And then there
in
were
order
certain
to
things that he
navigate.
just could not.
Right.
You know, the
Right.
way he spoke, I think
Right.
he just leaned more into it and said, no, I'm going to be even more so of what I am. You know, and the world will greet me in that way. Use it as a device.
I might as well ask you about the difference between those two characters you played this year. Then they're so different from each other in like every conceivable way.
Yeah. I found myself in both of these men. I think we're human and we can find the light and the dark. I make a choice every day, I think, to live in the light and to be hopeful. but I have everything inside of me to go to the dark spots too, truly. And so people feel like, oh, that's to see you. In a beautiful way, I'm happy that Rustin came out first, and that stored up a lot of goodwill for me to do some really terrible things. And as missed in The Color Purple.
I ain't gonna let you marry my son because you in the family way. Pretty girl like you can take his mind, but you can't have his money.
He ain't got no money.
I understand them both. I understand that I've had trauma in my life. I've had loss. I've had a feeling like I didn't have agency, or I felt not empowered to be my full self. And that's what Mr. turned into. You know, he's someone who hasn't been loved or understand love and tenderness and care. And so he oppresses others. And, you know, he's just a constant bad day. Yeah. you know what I mean? But I think, so I understand that. But I also understood my function in The Color Purple, which was really to show how hurt people. And I wanted to humanize them. I think we've all played despicable characters. And the thing that I think you must do is find how much I love him and how much I want for him, how much I hurt for him and ache for him, and how I look at the lens of the world through his point of view.
I had some reluctance in taking this part. Part of it was that I had never really done anything like this before, and part of it was feeling like I wasn't able to do it. And then part of it was like, what's the world gonna think about me playing this total narcissistic, selfish, misogynistic lout who's basically preying on this young woman? And then I said, come on, man, you know, if you're an artist, then you gotta run towards the danger, and you gotta run towards what scares you. And if you're gonna grow, then that's how you grow.
Mark, your role in Poor Things, rakish, caddish, pretty much everything bad. Yeah. But he has an arc, and he has real feelings. When I was watching that, I thought, what a great time he must be having playing this role. Was it so?
It was a blast. It was, yeah, all the things that you can't do in life. That, like, everyone you get canceled for, really. It was just like full open, whatever you want to do. And, but, you know, also that he does have, that he falls apart, that he doesn't, you know, that he can't maintain that.
You will rejoin the table and you confine yourself to the following 3 phrases. How marvelous, delighted, and how do they make the pastry so crisp, yes?
You are hurting Bella.
Sorry. Reason does not penetrate. Let us go. Ow.
People start to think of you in a certain way. And it's kind of an oppressive time right now as an artist, because, or just as people, just so many eyes on you, and you know, it's like, what's in your cabinet now? Like, you know, what shoes you're wearing, what you say, what you can't say, the way you look, you know, how you are in public. Everything's under this scrutiny, and it just feels just incredibly oppressive. And so to play a part that's like so against what you normally would think is your type, what people want and expect from you as your brand, and to just throw off all of that oppression feeling was like really fun and exciting to do.
Paul, your writer-director Alexander Payne, with whom of course you worked in Sideways,
Indeed,
has said that your character in Holdovers was brought about with you in mind. I wonder what that says he thinks of you. So
smell like week old haddock.
how early on in the process did he tell you that was happening?
We tried to make it for many years, for a long time. He was working on it for a long time. So he'd send it to me and say, what do you think? And I kept saying, just keep going. This is wonderful. And we tried to do it, but it never worked out schedule-wise, because he really wanted it to be winter. It needed to snow. He really wanted snow. And it's beautiful in that movie. Every time it's snowing, it's actually snowing. It's not that like soapy stuff that lands on your shoulder and fades away. It's actual snow. And you could really feel it and walk around the snow. It was beautiful. Yeah. So yes, he wrote me a part that smells like fish. It has hyperhidrosis, which I didn't even know was a thing. Excessively sweaty palms. And I have an issue with my eye and stuff like that. All of which was, he just wrote me a big gift of a part, you know, because I know him well. He was a friend of mine, you know, and so he was like, I think you'll understand this guy.
I can tell by your faces that many of you are shocked at the outcome. I, on the other hand, am not, because I have had the misfortune of teaching you this semester, and even with my ocular limitations, I witnessed firsthand your glazed, uncomprehending expressions.
Sir, I don't understand.
That's glaringly apparent.
No, it's... I can't fail this class.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Mr. Coates. I truly believe that you can.
The background was very similar to stuff that I knew in my own life. So it's funny. I mean, it was like a lot of things fell away, and I was just going back and drawing on things from my own life. And sometimes I thought, I'm not working hard enough. And I saw the movie, and I thought, wow, I look like people that I didn't even know I was manifesting people from my past that I didn't even know was happening. He just knew I was going to be able to draw on this stuff from my own life. So it was a gift. It was a huge gift that he gave me. It was beautiful.
Isn't it a weird thing about working hard? Like, where you think, when you're kind of enjoying yourself sometimes, you think, should I be working?
This can't be right.
And I always think it's like, you play a part, right? You know, you're required to play. That's what you're to do. And so sometimes the idea of working and acting is sort of antithetical. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that actually...
I sometimes feel like the work is just to convince me that I'm not, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's like, and I don't need to be doing it so much. And you said something so great about letting a lot of stuff fall away to just connect now, to not worry about all that other and just start to connect and remember that it's the connection is actually the reason I'm doing it. And it's like, and so that was awesome.
There's elements of sci-fi in it, but there's no doubt from audiences, it really devastates audiences. And I think it's a very cathartic experience for lots of different types of audience. So it's a love story, really. It's I think concerns itself with the idea that life is finite. And there's a very imaginative idea at the center of it, which is what would you do? What would you say to your parents as an adult if you could bring them back?
Andrew, I wanted to ask you about your film, All of Us Strangers. Your writer-director, Andrew Haig, he shot it in his hometown?
He shot it in his childhood home.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So that sure makes it seem personal.
I kind of just felt like I just had to go back to a place where I mercifully feel pretty comfortable for the most part with who I am now. But to go back to that place where you're 9 or 10 and you don't even quite know what the hell's different about you, but just something is, and it's a very strange place to go back to.
Suppose nothing's going to fit you anymore, is it?
No.
Yeah, well, I bought you some of your dad's things instead.
Okay.
Oh, look, come on, take these off as well and I'll put them in to dry with the rest. Oh, will you take them off, Adam? Honestly.
What I think is so beautiful and so personal about this story is that I think for a lot of queer people, it's not necessarily that you are like fully rejected by your family, or nor are you wholeheartedly embraced. That there's something in between that I think is the experience of a lot of people. You know, you have the accidental cruelty of your parents and what they might say, and so that it's a sort of discomfort, and they say awkward and embarrassing things to you, and they you know, and that's the way it is. I think for a lot of people, it's not. It's a murky territory, and I think that's why it touches people, because it's not in any way an extreme film. I think that's why it's moving. You know.
What's wonderful about the way it's handled in the film too is that it becomes his inner conversation, but it also becomes their own self-reflection in a way.
Exactly,
because they are exactly as they were.
Absolutely.
And it's, well, maybe, you know, this kind of reconsideration of choices, which I found to be really, really, really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you.
For me, this character is one that I didn't have to do a lot of morphing, physically, kind of vocally. It was really just I guess, trying to retrace some steps. I really felt a very strong understanding of his difficulties. What we do when it's at its best is empathetic work. In this case, I think it was kind of self-pitying.
It's a perfect opportunity to ask you about American Fiction, which I'm eager to do. Because you guys were all talking about why you get out of bed to do this stuff. And I wondered, watching that film, how long it took you reading the script to get on the phone with your agent and say, I got to make this one.
Well, in fact, they were very excited having read it and sent it to me. It's funny, director Cord Jefferson, who was a writer, first-time director, and likewise, when he read the novel that it's based on, Percival Everett's Erasure, he says he started hearing, the character in my voice. And I said, I'm sorry for you that that would be your experience. But so he came to me. He likes to say it took me a long time to, come around. But the reason that it did was because I was like kind of in a very monk-like place, this character, and I was kind of living that life where you reach that stage where things have to fall away. In his instance, the movie's satirical, we're taking the piss, as is said, and the piss needs to be taken in this instance, but the social commentary and all of that is kind of the glow around the thing at the center, which is the story of a man who's asked to be the caretaker of his family. And that, for me, was what really drew me in.
Wait a minute, why are these books here?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that this author, Ellison, is black.
That's me, Ellison. Yeah. He is me, and he and I are black.
Oh, bingo.
No bingo, Ned. These books have nothing to do with African-American studies. They're just literature. The blackest thing about this one is the ink.
It's the story of this guy who all of a sudden, all eyes are on him, and he is asked to be the adult. And I had been living that for a bit, which is why it took me a while to get around to, saying, okay, let's do it. But also why when I did, I said, yeah, let's go. Because there had been a book, obviously the novel that it was based on, but I kind of just read the book of my life.
Yeah,
and just, it was a character that, not a lot of, for me, like a lot of, as you say, like, a lot of work in terms of creating the bells and,
yes.
It was just like, okay, just kind of tie into it, because I knew his journey very well, and or his path, and in this instance, and what the what the implications are. And I think it's resonating for people, the sacrifices that you have to make on behalf of family, whether they're creative, personal, and otherwise. And so that's why I wanted to tell this one.
When people ask this question, and what are you drawn to now, and why do you make the choices for the thing that you want to do next? Because you don't have to, right? Yeah. You can stay at home. I think people have homes and they want to be with families and stuff like that, but then you make a choice to go and do this job. Why now?
That's a really good question. I ask myself that all the time. I mean, there's practical answers, and then I can't do anything else at all.
Right, that's true.
That's all I can do. We've kind of narrowed it down to,
Did you study law?
I did. I abandoned that. It was failed catastrophically. It was a terrible decision. But I think it's a sort of a need to express yourself in some way, and I think I'm obsessed with story. But I think you're right. As we become older, you kind of think there's certain stories, types of stories that I want to tell now.
What do you take it to mean? Neutrons smash into nucleus, releasing neutrons to smash into other nuclei. Criticality, a point of no return, massive explosive force. But this time, the chain reaction doesn't stop. It would ignite the atmosphere. When we detonate an atomic device, we might start a chain reaction that destroys the world.
There is so much stuff in the world. We live in a world where there's so much, I hate the word, but there's so much content out there, and there's so many things, and like so much choice, and you get like option paralysis when you put on the telly and you want to watch something, or you want to go to the movie. I get terrified by what to watch or not watch. So you have to be very kind of specific, I think, in the choices. And you know, because we were talking earlier about, you know, when you did Angels in America, and how did that change you? And I feel like when I was younger, I began to understand empathy through acting, and I don't think I ever would have been able to learn that or activate that as a young man otherwise if I hadn't have found this. You know, because they say the definition of empathy is to walk in someone else's shoes, and that's all we do, all day long. And I think it's definitely made me a better person than I was as a kid. I think all the films here, like that we're talking about, have something to them that, you know, they're provocative or stimulating, or they ask questions, and that there's not just pure entertainment, I suppose. That's the long-winded way of saying it, that there's something else in there that is kind of potentially useful for the human spirit, maybe.
It was very personal for me to tell the story by Rustin, who is an unsung hero of mine. He is marginalized in the history books because he was openly gay. He was a star athlete. He was an incredible thinker and organizer. He was a great influence and friend to Dr. Martin Luther King. And he magnificently organized the March on Washington for jobs and freedom. It's a rethinking of our history and who creates sort of larger moments, and then also who's sort of put on the sidelines. So finally, he's stepping out of the shadows in our film.
Can you think of the last time you felt pure joy being on a set? What's the last time you just felt unadulterated joy?
After the martini.
They call cut. Martini.
We're moving on. You got that? You feel happy about that?
I would say this. I'm just going to say I've watched so much of your work through the years, and I wonder. My question, and maybe it's not a question, but I think I did see you in Angels in America, and you rocked my world. And I thought, yes, when you do something like that, then everything you do has to live up or be around that level of like where you put your art and your heart. That's what I've seen in your work. That's why I'm always out. I'm Jeffrey Wright. That's bad mother. I do. No, really, I do.
Thank you, Colman. I mean, I was spoiled early.
Yes.
With that, you know, to the idea that, you know, we can do
this with art.
We could do some pretty great things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And as well, it spoiled me to the idea that I could marry, you know, these two, you know, kind of almost primary interests for me, which was, you know, storytelling and creativity and politics. And there was, you know, right out of the gate in many ways in my career. But as far as, you know, working on that level consistently over, you know, however many days I've been up to this work, you know, there are other considerations that come in too.
Yeah.
You know, that when I was working then with that, and then I guess, you know, Basquiat after, and they say it was, you know, I could think about those things all day.
Yeah.
You know, I can't do that anymore. You know,
right?
Because the kids, you know, you
can't live in that
college now.
space
But
all day, yeah.
you know, for those years, the considerations that I made. Well, maybe I don't want to go home, go away for too long, because you know, and there weren't always, you know, the distilled purity in the choices. Yeah. It was, you know, it was practical, some practical
distilled purity.
It was your job.
But I think, you know, to your question, what I have. And what that was indicative of this, but what I have sought out in terms of leaving the house now is the quality of the collaboration.
Yeah,
yes.
right.
That's you say, you know, he, you know,
that's superior.
Knows you, you know. That, it's like I don't, whatever the story is, I don't want to be in some.
I want to have a good day.
I want to be in a room.
You know, I want to be with people who are, you know, it's so much kind of, you know, mystique around what we do, and you know, movie making. People have no understanding of what they actually. It really, man, what I love what I've come to really love about it, and I think maybe working on Westworld, because it was over many seasons, and it's like, we're doing 19 hours today, and it's the Nolans, but what I came to love about it is show up every day. Okay, there's key grip, there's an electrician, carpenters, boom, and it's a macro,
It shouldn't
microcosm.
It shouldn't work.
Macrocosm.
It does.
A friend of mine, he calls it a circus of the unemployable.
Very good. That's good.
Were you going to say something, Andrew?
What were you going to say?
Well, just, the thing that I hate is the idea that storytelling is that it's sort of facile. I don't like that anymore. I used to think that, there's a kind of thing, I don't know, where people talk about, acting as a sort of frivolous thing to do. And actually, the older I get, even though I can take the work less seriously, so to speak, I really do believe, like during the pandemic, the things that helped people enormously. What are you watching? What are you reading?
Yeah.
What music are you listening to?
Yeah.
So when the arts actually isn't funded or taken seriously, it really gets on my nerves because it's just simply not true. It helps people when they're at their lowest ebb. You want someone to tell you a story. When you're a child, when your parents tell you a story, it's something that human beings are able to do. It's one of the most human things that you can do. So the fact that it's not, I don't mean that it has to be everything needs to be treated, very po-facedly, but I do think that it serves an incredibly important function in the world.
I think we all got the notion of the kind of 70s movie that we were trying to pay homage to. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's not a sort of nostalgia trip. It's not a kind of retro thing. It's literally like a kind of found 70s movie, but we all got the idea of it. Really was nothing I could teach Dominic. I was just enjoying watching him enjoy it and be his watchful, smart self. I would only ever tell him, I would watch him and go, that was really awesome. And I want to get him in his head, but I just was always wanting to just encourage him and point out how great he was. That's all I needed to do for him. From him, I learned he was really thoughtful about his character in a way I've kind of forgotten.
The actor strike is over, thankfully.
Yeah.
And one of the really contentious issues that's still out there is AI, how it's going to be used, what actors' rights are on it. Have you guys given that any thought? Are you afraid of that as a looming iceberg?
I've given it some thought in these terms. The nature of these companies, the technology, the streamers, is that they have all of the data available to them as to what anyone watches, how long they watch it, when they went to the bathroom, when they came back. They know it all. So I think, if there's this obsession with AI, they could very easily use the AI to calculate how to pay people fairly,
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
They got all
They ain't gonna do that.
I mean, that's would be a pretty healthy application, but yeah.
All I know is that Marvel and Disney have probably 1,000 hours of biometric information on me that someone could just put in a thumb drive and probably upload it to an AI learning piece of software and just have all that.
And build a new Vincent D'Onofrio.
And build a new In our lifetime, we will probably see an AI movie star who doesn't have to do roundtables and who everybody will love.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would say that's probably.
Do you think that's true, really?
Yeah.
People would love.
Well, people are like, well, we're not going to be able to feel the way we do. And I was like, have you ever watched Toy Story?
But you're going to have generations of people used to it,
Yeah.
Kids are going to be used to seeing AI things.
They
It's
are.
not going
They are.
to be weird to them, So it's like they will love it.
Yeah.
I think it's scary.
Yeah, it's weird.
Do any of you have sort of a nightmare scenario of seeing yourself that's not you?
I don't think we would ever know.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be like kind of a Frankensteinian,
Yeah, it'd be
combination
me
of
and you and Paul and all of our best
and Larry
hits.
the Cable Guy.
Larry the Cable Guy, for sure.
But do you not think it's something like CGI where you go, that's incredible technical achievement, but that the audience kind of go, I think that's a bit AI-ish, that performance. Do you know what I mean? Like that there's some human thing that we might
not have.
You know, that you just go, oh, there's something a little bit off with that performance. Do you know what I mean? That you can't fully represent what it's like to be a human being.
Because it's imperfection.
There you go.
Right,
It doesn't have it built into it, right?
The flaw.
But
maybe they're going to be able to recreate imperfection.
Well, I mean,
At some
look at
point, it's
how
going to
long.
get so advanced that you're going to be able to do that.
But I also think they're gradations of usage. You know, it's not like building entirely. It's little, you know, little.
Got to find ways how to
refinement here and there, and also, I mean, it's already being done to some extent. And we don't even know the extent of the application of AI in our industry or in many industries. I mean, it's at work now.
Yeah.
I think you're right, though. Ultimately, you know, at bottom, you know, we're humans telling human stories, and I think it'd be like, you know, I guess we'll be vinyl. You know, we'll be the performer version of vinyl, but. I don't know. I don't think any of us really know the full implications.
It worked nice when they took Lennon's voice on that Beatles track, didn't they? And the AI managed to separate it from the piano, and it was so incredible to hear his voice, so ghostly.
There'll be a lot of that.
Yeah, but that's a good application. I mean, that's when it's
good use of AI.
A tool, I guess, as opposed to a.
But then, I mean, isn't it really just about what companies and capitalism always do? It's about creating automation and efficiency and carving out costs, and that often means carving out humans. And you know this. You know, I mean, to the extent that we can, as a union, protect ourselves, you know, we must, and also then individual contracts too, as well. You know, but yeah, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. That's the nature of the beast.
It's going to be hard to regulate it.
That's the key.
Really hard to
because you can't get ahead of it.
How? Yeah.
The legislators are always too far behind.
Right.
That's the key. I mean, this is at the end of the day. What needs to happen is the government needs to step in and regulate and protect.
We can count on them. That's right.
No, I mean, that's like the only place we have really to fight is unions now. I mean,
that's true.
No politician's going to do it. The CEO isn't going to, out of the generosity of their heart, be like, dudes, we're not going to use AI. Don't worry, you're not going to be. We're not going to scan you and use you forever. After you're dead, we're never going to make a movie with you. That's just not going to happen. And so it's really up to us to, I think, protect ourselves, which is why it was so important to strike. And we don't even know what kind of guardrails there are. I mean, I have Native American acting, friends who are just really starting to find a place in this business. And, they reached out to me the other day. They're like, man, we don't know about this because, no one knows who we are. And they could lighten our skin. They could. We don't have any protections specifically based on those dimensions. So we don't know if we feel good about going forward with this. And the language isn't really there.
To Paul's point, though, I do think government can play a role beyond unions because, for example, you can't copyright the human form. Why not? Why can you not copyright your face, your voice, the frequency of your... we just need to establish those types of protections, and then maybe there's a way that you can fight back. The issue is, how do you know how much of your data has been fed into...
Exactly.
But at the very least, you should be able to,
True, you cannot. There's nothing in place to copyright your own appearance.
It has to be of man... essentially man-made.
It's funny, the splitting of the atom, like Chris is talking a lot to these, AI experts, and they're saying we are at that moment now with AI, that we are at the splitting of the atom back in the 40s, and that's how scary it is.
Yeah.
That's the sort of power unleashing. But
all right, well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
We weren't sure it would happen, so your movies are wonderful, your performances are great, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
It's an insane year for performances. It's kind of humbling to watch all of these magnificent roles and these performances. I saw Poor Things and I was absolutely knocked out by what Emma Stone did, and also Mark Ruffalo. The film is just staggeringly good.
I watched Andrew Scott's film last night, which was just so moving and odd in the best way, and so deeply emotional.
I mean, just because I know him so well and I know his work so well, and it's such a massive turn as Robert Downey Jr.'s work as Louis Strauss in the in the whole canon or oeuvre of Robert Downey Jr. was pretty special and exciting for me to see.